So there's a new policy.
It's a new corporate policy.
Hey, there's a new policy at work.
No, not another one.
So yeah, do you really need another health and safety policy? Do you need a health and safety policy for every single situation? Now, some organizations do it and they manage. I talked about this in an earlier video. I'll leave a link in the description. But there's other risks, things that you have to consider, and these things can get rather tangled up. Pretty soon, when you're adding policy to policy to policy, you don't know where you started, and you certainly might not be aware of where you'll end up. The other thing that you run the risk of is having a policy that complicates, contradicts, or even worse, nullifies another existing policy. You end up with this cascading effect. Now, of course, one of the other things that you run into is you may run the risk of irritating your coworkers and thereby further jeopardizing your health and safety culture. So you don't want to do these things. You don't want to complicate things by constantly creating new policies. There is a solution though. You can make use of rules instead of complicating things with policy where you don't need to. It's important to understand what's what. Rules in an organization imply a set of clearly stated standards or actions which are designed to prompt the desired behavior of an individual or individuals in that workplace. Policies refer to the course or principle of action laid down by executive and top-level management which act as a guide for the organization in their decision-making processes. Policies really, when you get right down to it, usually are designed to guide the organization's actions when following government legislation, in this case, occupational health and safety legislation. Now, I talked about health and safety policy and I gave an example of what would be a good policy and a good policy statement in another video, and yes, that link is in the description, but if I were you, I'd watch this one, then go back to that one, or vice versa. In a previous video, I indicated an example of a good health and safety policy and a policy statement. When you're thinking about your policy statement and you're thinking about the rules that you're going to create to enforce it or reinforce it, what is your goal? Your goal should be to prompt a certain behavior or action or modify existing behavior so that you can achieve an end, in which is making things safer for the workers involved. Rules also end up becoming administrative control, so you think about that one. Creating a good rule ends up controlling hazards. Think about it this way. You've seen a lot of times signs that say PPE must be worn beyond this point. That's a rule established as a control to keep workers safer by indicating that they need to wear PPE. If you've written a robust health and safety policy providing guiding health and safety principles and actions, you'll only need rules to shore it up. You won't need additional policy. So what circumstances is it appropriate to use a rule over a policy? Well, let's look at a few right now. So if you want to address certain individuals or groups of individuals within your organization, but not the whole entire organization, it's usually more effective to create a rule versus a policy because rules will apply to those people if you word it properly. For instance, let's say that you have a bunch of delivery drivers that work in your organization. You might want to indicate to them that they have to fuel up their vehicles prior to parking their vehicles at the end of the workday. Or let's say that you have a select group of employees that have to travel as part of their work duties. You might want to say that all employees traveling must check in with reception upon departure and upon return. So those rules would apply to only those groups of people. Now, the second reason that you may want to use rules over policy is if you have certain areas within your workplace or certain environments or certain settings that you want to modify the behavior in, but not the whole entire organization or not the whole workplace. You might establish a rule, such as, say, no smoking in this area, or no engine idling in these areas, or shut off vehicle when loading and unloading in the loading bay, things like that. Those are rules that would address a certain environment, but not the whole entire workplace. Finally, the third situation is where there's only going to be a certain situation going on within a time period, or it's just temporary, or it's constantly changing. Think of the thumbnail for this video. Keep off the ice is not needed in the summertime. Realistically, let's put it into another thing with current events. Masks must be worn when not at workstation or in single occupancy office space. or masks must be worn when moving about the workplace. Things like that. So hopefully this answers that question about needing two health and safety policies for unique situations like, say, for instance, the current pandemic and the return to close to normal operations. Many organizations are running parallel health and safety policies and it's working for them. Maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure. Consider this, what about a rules-based process, where rules can be edited or adjusted on the fly and communicated to employees as needed through the appropriate medium? Things like, take for instance, look at this sign. Masks have to be worn in this environment, etc. But as things progress and we work our way through this situation that we're in, maybe that sign can be changed to this one. A word of warning though, requiring people not vaccinated to self-identify their private health situation may be infringing on their rights. I'm not a lawyer.
He's not a lawyer.
Nope, not a lawyer. But it should likely be mentioned, just to further complicate matters. So, answering the question, do you need more than one health and safety policy? I'm going to leave it up to you. I would suggest no. Consider who and what you're trying to target. Is it, number one, select people or groups within your organization? Number two, are you trying to address behavior in areas, environments, or settings within your workplace, but not the whole entire workplace? And is the situation temporary? Is it time limited? Is it changing? If these are the situations, you might want to consider using rules to reinforce your health and safety policy. So anyway, thank you for watching. Do me a favor, if you like the content, let me know. I appreciate it. Also, if you have a thought or an opinion, or you didn't like the content, let me know in the comments. If you haven't done so already, you might want to consider subscribing. Just ding the bell, you'll get notified of when new content goes up, and you won't miss a live stream. Now do me a favor, until we see each other again, and I sure hope we do, don't just think about safety, don't just talk about safety, but wherever you end up, do safety. Provoke safety. Thank you. Bye for now.